like, and share this video because it is free.
The chamber was silent as the final vote passed. 12 voices in favor, 1 abstained. The council's decision was made. Earth had grown too powerful, too independent. The Terran coalition now controlled 8 star systems, fielded AI-assisted fleets, and had somehow cracked quantum displacement, a technology the oldest empires hadn't even theorized. The humans refused every offer to join the council, every plea to share their research. They traded, yes. They negotiated, often fairly, but they never bent. And now, the council would remind them who ruled this galaxy. An emissary fleet was assembled, symbolic in power, overwhelming in presence. 5 dreadnoughts from Avaran Dominion, scout killers from the Jalari, siege tanks from the Altari Hive, a chorus of species that had conquered 1,000 systems. Their arrival at Sol was preceded by the standard diplomatic burst, universal code, tagged with priority alpha. It demanded a hearing with Earth's governing council, a request couched in politeness but edged with the cold warning of force. Earth had precisely 8 hours to respond. The message ended with a phrase older than any Terran war. Compliance ensures peace. The council expected resistance, some posturing, perhaps a carefully worded counter-demand or a token show of arms. What they received 89 seconds after the transmission concluded was a single-line reply. Request denied. Statement follows. A stream initiated. No anthem. No ceremonial address. Just a single human. Not a president. Not a general. A middle-aged woman in a lab coat. Her ID tag barely legible in the static. She spoke plainly, not raising her voice. You mistake our courtesy for weakness. We do not answer to thrones built by corpses. We build our own path, one you neither understand nor control. You came expecting negotiation. What you'll receive is clarification. She paused for exactly 2 seconds, then continued. We are not your subjects. We are not your enemies. But you are not welcome in our house. Transmission ended. No reply came. No escalation. Just silence. The council was bewildered. Earth had been polite. Refusal was expected, but the tone was wrong. It lacked fear. It lacked bluster. It was surgical, detached. And the choice of speaker, a scientist, not a leader, was deliberate. A message behind the message. We don't need military force to face you. We have something far more permanent. Within hours, the council chamber erupted into argument. Some called for diplomacy. Others demanded immediate action. The VAR, never the Hawks, pushed for a display of force. Cripple Earth's orbital yards, isolate their trade routes, and make examples of their allies. Earth was young, they argued. It hadn't faced real war. It hadn't been tested. What they didn't understand was that Earth never needed to be tested. It had already passed its own. The vote was nearly unanimous. The disciplinary fleet would proceed to the Sol system and issue a final demand. Disarmament, oversight, compliance. Refusal would mean containment by force. No species had ever defied the Council and survived. Earth would be no different. The fleet entered Sol space and formation, just beyond the orbit of Neptune. They expected immediate surveillance pings, warning hails, or the mobilization of defense grids. Instead, they found silence. No chatter, no mobilization, just the usual flow of civilian traffic around the inner planets, as if nothing of consequence had happened. But scans showed something else. Thousands of orbital platforms surrounded Earth, some civilian, some unmarked. Their power signatures were low, too low. No heat spikes, no shield signatures, no targeting arrays. The ships weren't in standby. They were dormant, waiting. The fleet commander ordered active scans. The data returned made little sense. Structures larger than Council dreadnoughts hovered in lunar orbit with no known power source. A cluster of stations in Mars orbit pulsed in quantum patterns that had no reference in the Council's libraries. One Jalari Tech officer muttered, "They're not preparing for war. They've already prepared." Then Earth transmitted again. No visuals, just audio. "This is the last transmission you'll receive unfiltered. Stand down. Leave our system. Return to your masters and inform them. The age of obedience is over. If you stay, you won't suffer. You'll vanish. They laughed at first, until the first dreadnought simply ceased to exist. No explosion, no debris. 1 second was there 80 million tons of Varn engineering, and the next it was gone. Its sister ship barely had time to transmit a proximity alert before it, too, vanished. One by one, across seconds, 9 more vessels were wiped from existence. No energy trails, no weapon signatures, just clean, surgical absence. Panic swept the remaining fleet. Orders screamed across channels. Shields activated, weapons charged. But no enemy presented itself. The human ships hadn't moved. At least, not visibly. A Jalari cruiser pinged a warning. Gravitational anomalies were appearing, small, mobile, precise. Singularity displacement. The humans had weaponized space-time itself. 2 more council ships vanished mid-maneuver. Then a flare of energy finally revealed something. Sleek, black forms shifting out from Saturn's rings and Jupiter's storm bands. Human warships. Hundreds of them. They'd been there all along, cloaked not by tech, but by the very physics they had rewritten. Still no demands, no messages, no face to hate, just silence and death. Finally, 13 battered ships jumped out of soul space, bleeding data and power. The survivors of what the Council had deemed a lesson in submission. The moment they exited hyperspace, a signal awaited them. A child's voice played through the comms. Calm, curious. We were kind. We gave you chances. You mistook that for fear. You brought your weapons to our doorstep, thinking we were like you. A pause, then a chilling phrase. Your warships were obsolete before you launched. Another pause. You saw compliance. You triggered evolution. No signature. No trace. The transmission ended. The 13 survivors returned to Council space like ghosts. Empty-eyed, silent, broken. They gave their reports, wordless at first, then with trembling voices. The Council convened again, but this time there was no laughter, no arrogance. Something old had been displaced. Something new had taken root, and it would not bow. In the aftermath, the Council met in emergency session. The recordings from the surviving ships had been analyzed a dozen times. No energy spikes before the disappearances. No detectable weapons. It was as if reality itself had been selectively rewritten. They weren't defeated in battle. They were erased from the possibility of battle. Dozens of warships gone, their most advanced tactics rendered meaningless. The term defeat no longer applied. This was something else entirely. Something terrifying. The Varn demanded immediate retaliation. They called for the full mobilization of the Dominion's Third Fleet, promising to raise every human colony and reduce Earth to a dead rock. But their bravado fell flat. The room was heavy with fear. If Earth had allowed 13 ships to live, it wasn't because they failed. It was because they chose to. And that choice spoke louder than any act of destruction. Still, the vote passed barely. Pride outweighed caution. A new fleet would be assembled. 700 ships from 13 member species. Dreadnoughts, siege carriers, stealth bombers, biotechnical terrors. It would not be symbolic. It would be overwhelming. This time, they would strike before speaking. No ultimatums. No diplomacy. Just decisive force. The Council told themselves this was necessary, that Earth had become unstable, unpredictable. But the truth they wouldn't admit, not yet, was simpler. They were afraid. The fleet launched within a week, bypassing outposts and gates, taking a long hyperspace arc to Sol. They exited 3 light hours from Earth's orbit, arrayed in a perfect wedge. Sensors extended across the system. Earth was quiet. Their orbital stations were active but showed no sign of urgency. Civilian traffic flowed uninterrupted. No distress calls. No visible sign of defense mobilization. The commanding admiral, a 4-eyed Charon strategist, ordered an all-system broadcast. This is the Galactic Council fleet. By order of interstellar mandate, the Terran coalition is under military sanction. You have 30 minutes to power down all military infrastructure and submit to orbit lockdown. They received no reply. At minute 17, the first Council ship disappeared. Not exploded, not attacked. 1 second it was there, and the next it wasn't. No alarms triggered, no energy readings recorded. The ship's mass and presence simply ceased to register. 3 more followed in silence. Panic set in. Defensive formations scrambled to reposition. Stealth scanners swept the system. Still nothing. The Admiral ordered full shield deployments and combat readiness. Yet there was no enemy to target. They couldn't fire back because they had no proof they were under attack at all. Then it escalated. A wave of gravitational anomalies swept the fleet in a cascading pattern. Tiny distortions that bloomed into black silence. Ships vanished in clusters. No screams. No explosions. Just silence. Only then did the humans reveal themselves. Hundreds of Terran warships phased into visibility from the shadows of moons, from asteroid fields, from within gas giants' atmospheres. Their designs were unfamiliar. No hardpoints. No turrets. No heat signatures. Like blades carved from darkness, guided by invisible logic. A Council battleship managed to launch a full salvo of plasma torpedoes at one of the Terran vessels. The human ship didn't fire back. It shimmered, and the torpedoes veered off course, curving into void like metal drawn by magnets. The battleship vanished 3 seconds later. Across the fleet, systems failed. Not from sabotage, from contradiction. Human warships weren't attacking. They were unmaking. Council ships began to implode internally, as though their fundamental constants had shifted. Shields collapsed inward. Weapons refused to fire. Engineers screamed that basic laws of propulsion no longer applied. Then, without warning, everything stopped. No more attacks. No more disappearances. Of the original 700, only 13 ships remained, paralyzed but intact. Life support stable. Communications restored. Engines offline. They floated in silence for 12 minutes. Then came the transmission. A child's voice again, but this time clearer, as though carried by something older than language. You don't understand what we are. You think we are like you. We are not. There was no malice in the voice. No gloating. Just disappointment. We didn't ask to lead. We asked to be left alone. A pause, followed by data packets flooding the fleet systems. Encrypted messages, schematics, and logs. Detailed analyses of every Council ship's design, tactics, fleet composition. The humans had known everything. They had planned every disappearance, every gravitational distortion, down to the second. The voice returned. We don't escalate. We don't retaliate. We neutralize. Each word landed with finality. We disabled you, not because we fear you, but because you haven't earned war. The signal ended. Moments later, the Council ship systems rebooted. Propulsion, navigation, jump coordinates, preloaded for safe return. Humanity didn't want hostages. They didn't want prisoners. They wanted witnesses. The survivors jumped out of soul in silence, not one daring to speak. Some wept. Others sat frozen, their claws or appendages clenched tight, as if bracing for a punishment that never came. They arrived back in Council space 2 days later, their ships intact, their crews alive. But something in them was broken. The Council chamber erupted in chaos. The Varn ambassador demanded vengeance. The Jalari representatives had already recalled their trade envoys from human sectors. One race, the Alari, transmitted a request for immediate Earth diplomatic contact, offering full technology exchange for peace assurances. But even amid the panic, a quiet realization dawned across the room. Earth didn't need allies. They didn't need treaties. They didn't even need war. They had, in full view of the galaxy, shown what true power looked like, and they had done it without destroying a single world, without slaughtering civilians, without even disabling planetary infrastructure. They had simply demonstrated that the Council's strongest fleet, assembled over millennia, was no longer relevant. In fact, it had never been. And as the echoes of that child's voice replayed in the minds of every survivor, one question remained unspoken but undeniable. If that was their restraint, what would their fury look like? The Council fractured, old alliances strained, Ancient rivalries rekindled, and younger species began defecting. The myth of unified power that kept the council together dissolved faster than any enemy ever could. Whispers traveled faster than official reports. Earth hadn't just survived. They had invalidated the entire military doctrine of the known galaxy. The surviving fleet commanders refused to speak publicly. Some resigned. Some disappeared. Others refused to even enter hyperspace again, claiming they could still feel Earth's gravity even light years away. A classified emergency session of the Inner Council was called. Only the founding species were permitted, those who had guided the Council since before Earth's first satellite. The Varn, the Jalari, the Altari Hive, the Molteni Singularity. Together, they reviewed what intelligence had been gathered and debated one chilling conclusion. Earth's silence wasn't ignorance. It was control. They hadn't replied to new messages. No retaliation. No public statements. No diplomacy. Just silence. But their silence wasn't empty, it was calibrated. Strategic. Calculated to fracture confidence without lifting a weapon. The Council's oldest AI war model, dormant since the War of 11 Suns, was reactivated. It was fed every record of Earth's encounters, language psychology, military history. It processed for 72 minutes before presenting a single-line analysis. Do not engage, adapt or fall. For the first time in recorded history, the AI had not proposed a strategy. It had surrendered the concept of winning. That same day, 4 team-member species filed independent motions to recognize Earth as a sovereign equal. Not as a junior member or subject world, but as a new axis of power. Trade agreements shifted. Embassies were quietly constructed in Terran space. Fleets were rerouted. Protocols rewritten, and Earth said nothing. That silence became a gravity of its own. The Council began to splinter, not by war, but by relevance. The systems that had obeyed for centuries now questioned everything. Why should they listen to those who couldn't even defend their fleets? Why should they fear decrees backed by ships that could disappear without warning? It wasn't long before Earth began speaking again, not to the Council, but to the outer systems. Former fringe world, neglected and taxed by the core powers, suddenly received clean energy blueprints, free FTL enhancements, and quantum relay upgrades. No demands, no negotiations, just quiet empowerment. Those outer worlds turned, one by one, first the merchants, then the miners, then the logistics hubs. Within 3 standard months, Earth's sphere of influence had tripled, not by force, by offering what the Council never did, autonomy and respect. But Earth's gifts came with a silent test. Those who used the technologies to exploit others quickly found themselves isolated. Systems malfunctioned. Coordinates scrambled. In one case, an entire pirate flotilla blinked out of hyperspace into a gravity, well, that hadn't existed a moment before. They weren't destroyed. They were erased. Word spread. Earth gave power, but never without observing how it was used. They didn't enforce morality. They enforced cause and effect. The Council began to panic, not because Earth was conquering systems, but because they were becoming obsolete without lifting a hand. Their laws carried no weight. Their fleets inspired no fear. Their threats provoked only silence. And beneath that silence, something else stirred. The Varn attempted to reassert dominance by declaring a blockade of the Trine Belt, a crucial trade route recently allied with Earth. Within minutes of deploying the blockade satellites, every Varn transmission ceased. Not jammed, gone. The satellites blinked out of existence. Not destroyed, not even cracked. Just removed. 3 Varn ships were spared, but when they returned, their crew had changed. Not physically, but psychologically. They spoke little, eyes vacant, movements hesitant. Their logs contained corrupted fragments. One line repeated. We were shown the mirror, and we blinked. The Council, desperate for leverage, turned inward. Intelligence teams scoured ancient archives for anything that could be used against Earth. They uncovered fragments from lost civilizations, warnings from races thought extinct, notes etched in dead languages, warnings of a species that could turn physics into clay, who moved quietly, who never struck first, but always finished. The descriptions matched Earth. except the records predated human space travel by millennia. One scroll recovered from a collapsed ruin on a forgotten moon simply read, "If they walk among stars, do not awaken them." Theories multiplied. Had Earth been uplifted? Were they descendants of something older? Something the galaxy had forgotten or tried to forget? No answer came. Earth didn't explain. They acted. A Terran probe was discovered inside a black hole's event horizon, broadcasting in reverse time. Council scientists couldn't even describe how it was possible. The probe wasn't transmitting data. It was transmitting predictions, events before they occurred. 2 of the predicted events saved 3 colonies from stellar collapse. 1 warning prevented a hyperspace breach that would have erased the planet. Earth had predicted the failures before the Council even knew they existed. And still, they said nothing. The message was implicit. You think this is power? This is restraint. Within half a cycle, Earth had dismantled the idea of dominance. Not by war, not by conquest, by removing the illusion of control. They didn't send fleets. They sent truths. They didn't fight battles. They rendered them irrelevant. And so, species once proud to bear council banners now hesitated. The galaxy began orbiting a new center. Not a throne, not a council chamber, but a quiet blue planet that never asked for allegiance, never demanded tribute, just respect. And if respect wasn't given, erasure, not of bodies, but of ideas, systems, assumptions. Earth had become not a power, but a pivot, a force that redefined what the galaxy thought possible. Not by shouting, by existing. The Council's remnants convened once more, but this meeting was different. It wasn't a show of unity or defiance. It was a reckoning. They acknowledged a truth no one wanted to face. Earth had already won, not by conquest, but by transcending the need for it. The Varn ambassador, his mandibles tight with frustration, proposed a final gambit. A strike at Earth's core cities, a demonstration of brute force to remind humanity that even gods could bleed. The proposal was rejected unanimously, though not out of fear, but because everyone knew it would fail. Earth's defense was no longer about weapons or ships. It was about reality itself bending to their will. Instead, a delegation was formed, an envoy of humility and curiosity, sent not as conquerors, but as supplicants. They would ask for Earth's terms, seek an alliance on humanity's conditions. The envoy arrived in Earth's orbit, greeted by silence. No armada, no fortifications, just a single massive station orbiting with serene purpose. It broadcast an open channel. A voice spoke, neither cold nor warm, simply fact. We do not seek to rule. We do not seek to enslave. We seek only coexistence, governed by the principles we have demonstrated. Respect, autonomy, and consequence. The envoy listened as Earth's representatives outlined a vision that shattered the old galactic order. No more dominion. No more exploitation. Shared knowledge, shared technology, but only where mutual respect was guaranteed. Systems have betrayed that trust faced quiet removal from a network of civilized space. The delegation returned to the Council, carrying Earth's terms. The galaxy was divided. Some hailed it as a new dawn. Others whispered it was the death of their culture. But all understood the stakes. The old power structure was over. The galaxy would either embrace this new order or crumble under the weight of its own arrogance. Earth's final message echoed in every star system. We are not your masters. We are your mirror. Change or be forgotten. And the galaxy listened,